In today's episode, we're going to be making this walnut crotch cutting board. Like most of my projects, I begin by making a template from a SketchUp model. I like to take the time to create templates just in case I want to make another cutting board from the same design later on. I'm making this template out of 1/4 inch MDF. Since the template has both curves and angles, I begin by cutting the angles at the miter saw. I adjust the angle until the laser lines up and then make the cut. I like to keep a wider blade in my bandsaw for resawing, so when I cut curves like this, I need to make a few relief cuts in order to make that tight turn. Now I can start the cut and not have to worry about the blade binding. I repeat the process for the other side of the handle. To clean up the curves, I use the largest sleeve in my spindle sander, and I keep removing the waste until I'm right on my line. The spindle sander handles the curves, but the neck of the handle was still rough from the bandsaw. I used a flat board with sandpaper glued to it to remove the saw marks. To blend the neck and the curve, I switched to using sanding contours and 100 grit sandpaper. You can feel with your fingers once it's blended good enough to pass the eye test. And finally, using a 3/4 inch Forstner bit, I drilled a hole on the end of the template for a leather handle. The template is done, and now we can move on to making the cutting board. I've had this piece of walnut crotch for about 3 years now. It was too small of a board to use for a big project, so I thought I would make a nice cutting board for myself so that I can look at it every time that I use it. This board was highly figured on both sides. To prep the board, I first flatten one face and take it down to 1 1/4 of an inch thick at the planer. Since the board had a lot of figure, I had to take my time to prevent tear out. Oh, and this is what it looks like when your dust collector gets clogged. It was a mess to clean up. With the mess cleaned up, I cut the board to its final width at the table saw. And this is what's nice about having a template. I can place it on the board, trace it, and know what needs to be removed. It's good to know that if I ever wanted to make another one of these cutting boards, all I've got to do is pull the template off the wall and make an exact copy. Like making the template, I start by cutting the angles on the end of the board and the top of the handle. Next, it's back over to the bandsaw to make the relief cuts and then to remove the waste. Since we took the time to make the curves perfect on our template, we can use the flush trim bit to transfer the curves from the template to the cutting board. With the template taped down to the board, I slowly remove the waste at the router table. Right now the cutting board is nice, but I like to add a nice edge profile to not only make it look better, but feel better when you're holding it. So to do this, I'm using a roundover bit and the router table. To clean up the edge of the cutting board, I begin by using the spoke shave. If properly tuned, the spoke shave is the perfect tool to use in situations like this. It removes any mill marks and allows me to make the roundover just perfect. Since this board is highly figured, I had to constantly change directions while using the spoke shave to prevent tear out. And finally, I drilled the 3/4 inch hole at the drill press with the Forstner bit. Since this is a cutting board, I sanded up to 150 grit first with the orbital sander. For the edges, I found that using a soft pad made for the orbital sander perfect for sanding, as it would form to the shape of the edges. I also broke the edges of the hole using 150 grit sandpaper. For the finish, I'm using a butcher block conditioner. It's super simple to apply. All you have to do is wipe it on the surface, wait 20 minutes, and then wipe up the excess. It says for brand new boards to apply a total of 3 to 4 coats, so I did just that. After each coat, I let the board set for about an hour, and after the second coat, I waited about 24 hours before applying the third and fourth coats. Well, here it is, the completed cutting board. It's a simple design that allows the figure of the wood to do the talking, and with nice roundovers, it's comfortable to hold and use. Thanks for allowing me to share my build process with you. If you enjoyed this build, please leave a comment below and hit the thumbs up button. If you're not a subscriber, please consider hitting that subscribe button and hit the bell to get notifications for when I release a video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next build video.